Westnile TV, lighting up the region.
A very good evening to you viewers. Welcome to Westnile TV and welcome into the weekend. I know most of you started it yesterday, but today we are starting it official with a real talk with me, Ayot, Lillian, here on Westnile TV. You can catch us on Star Times, Zuku, and our YouTube channel where you can leave your comments and we'll have your comments here. We also on Facebook. You can follow us on all these platforms to be a part of this discussion. I hope you're having a very beautiful Saturday evening here in Arua. It's chilly. I know most of the times I say it's chilly, but that is it. It is what it is, and I hope you're grabbing a cup of coffee or tea to enjoy the show. Yes, I don't know how all of you are, whether you've known your father or you still don't know your father. I know we had a discussion on the DNA saga and it's still going on. A lot is going on surrounding that and many other issues that are trending in the country. Thank you for joining us for this episode of The Real Talk every Saturdays from 8 to 10 p.m. and our repeats run on Thursdays from 9 to 10 p.m. so make sure you don't miss any episode. And today we are focusing on a topic that is very sensitive here in the country, I should say worldwide, and that is on education. But particularly we want to look at poor performance here in Westnile, because in studio here we have young people who are leaders and who've looked into these issues of education here in the region. And by the way, recently they've been doing education outreach to ensure that they also contribute in improving on the performance in the region, because everyone has tried, all the stakeholders, the parents, the district leaders, the teachers, even the students themselves, but it's still not coming up. So it's a collective effort, and that's why we want to discuss, to look at ways forward as to how we can deal with this problem. And we have the young people here in the studio. We'll have the honors to we'll give them time to introduce themselves, but you might not want to miss in the house. We have the one and only, the very first guild president of Makerere, hailing from Westnile here in Arua City, better known as Dangote. He is here, His Excellency Mr. Alionji Lawrence. And we also have a very beautiful lady here in the studio. She's called Miss Tasneem Habib. She is a lawyer, and they'll have time to introduce themselves. Like I said, this is a very sensitive matter. You may want to leave your thoughts. You can do that on our YouTube channel. Do like, subscribe, and leave your comments. I will have them. Thank you so much for joining us for today's episode. So let's have the honors to know our guests joining us in the studio this evening. We'll start with our beautiful lady. You're most welcome to Westnile TV. Please say hi to our viewers.
Thank you so much for having me today. It's really a pleasure to be here.
Thank you.
It's really a beautiful evening. I would love to make a correction. I'm not yet a lawyer. I'm a lawyer in the making.
Okay.
Yeah, so a few years from now, that's when I'll be called a lawyer. So I'm just a lawyer in the making. I'm called Tasneem Habib. I'm a student of law at Makerere University.
Thank you so much, and thank you for that correction. And in a few years to come, you may have to learn to have have her as your lawyer, because why not? So let's take this chance to know our other guest. You're most welcome to the studio of Westnile TV.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you, Lillian, for having me at Westnile TV.
It's a pleasure.
My feeling is that you've already done enough introduction for me. But either way, my name is Lawrence Alionzi. They call me Dangote. I'm the 88th or the most immediate former guild president of Makerere University, a prospective electrical engineer. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Alionji, for coming to the studio, and Ms. Habib, it's a pleasure having you here. So we want to look into one of the biggest problems that we face in this region. As Westnile region, we are still lacking behind when it comes to education. Our schools do perform, but we continue to register poor performance each and every year. So generally speaking, starting with Mr. Alionji Lawrence, what is the state of education in Westnile generally?
Thank you so much, Lillian. For the challenges of education are in their multitude, and an evening as such may not be enough for us to dissect them in a manner in which they deserve to be, or in all their multitude. However, and more so the challenges vary from primary education to secondary education, then to tertiary school education. They are unique, and even there are those that cut across all the three sectors, or four, if there's any that I have actually left out.
Okay, sorry to interrupt you. Before we go to the challenges, what is your general observation when it comes to education, particularly performance here in Westnile?
I think Westnile schools still perform poorly in comparison to the other schools in the nation, because then we will not want to limit the competition to a local competition. Somebody said a village champion is not a champion, he's just a village champion. We will not want to limit, but in comparison, I think the challenge is the performance is poor in comparison to the other schools that we have in this country. But also the difference in performance is not just regional. It is also there's also a gross difference or a discrepancy between private and government schools. So if you go to a school in Wakiso, you not exactly have the same facilities as somebody who went to school in Karamoja. And for me, I have spent the last 3 years of my university life transversing schools within Westnile with the opportunity presented by Makere University Lugbara Students Union in their annual education outreach. And more recently, I'm just actually concluding my tour to some Westnile schools. I wasn't able to join them for every school visit, but in my observation, yes, they are still, even when you go to a school and retrieve their record or whatsoever, they are still reflections, or they are still factors of poor performance. You see what government has been able to do successfully. And in Westnile, there are over 1,000 secondary government schools. The number of private schools is much fewer. And in this country, it's not a doubt that private schools perform better than government schools. So we have very many government schools, and what we've been able to achieve significantly is enrollment. And maybe now it is time for us to start asking questions of, now that we have enrolled them, what quality of education are they actually assessing? I want to keep that as my brief comment or my observatory opinion on the state of schools in Westnile.
That's a very interesting observation you have right there. So I'll turn to Ms. Habib. What is your general observation on the kind of education we have here in Westnile?
Thank you, Lillian. About Westnile schools, I'll agree with my colleague. Westnile schools, the performance is not well at all. Westnile schools were at a rate that we are failed to perform to compete at national level. What do I mean by compete at national level? We have failed to compete. When I'm rating Westnile schools for my own observation, I use the government scholarships to rate Westnile schools. When these scholarships are out, you go and look at the list of government-sponsored students from schools. It is hard to find schools from Westnile, students from schools in Westnile in that list, which is really hard. And that's how I rate the performance of Westnile schools. We do not compete at national level. The only benefits we get at district level, that's not what we want. We want something better. We want to be able to compete with other schools, yet we have failed to achieve that till now. So to me, the performance of Westnile schools is still alarming.
Okay, great. Now that you've rated it based on the entry on government scholarship and all that, you know, people here have been having complaints about the students here not making it on government sponsorship because of issues like discrimination and all that. So what is your own take on that? How true is that?
I will not agree with that schools here are not on the list because of discrimination. No, people actually perform. People perform. You see, when they are marking your name, at least what I know is that you do not know the schools you are marking. Results come out. So they take people on national merit based on your performance. Those schools, there's no discrimination. It's just that our schools don't perform well. There's nothing such as discrimination in those schools. You can find the other people who are from Westnile, but they are on those national merit lists, but actually they did not study from Westnile schools. But you find them, they're actually there. The problem is just our performance.
Okay, interesting that you have that take on that issue. But I believe young people would still want to hear more on that, because the complaint has been we have students who perform, they give good grades, maybe 20 points, and they are not seen anywhere on the government list, on the district quota, and all that. Mr. Alyonji, what's your take on that? Is it true that these scholarships are discriminatory? There's discrimination in giving out these scholarships, or what?
It's funny how you've mentioned that. 2 days ago, I will withhold the name of the school. I was at a school, and Dean of Studies, the Dean of Studies said his students suffer from too much sincerity. That for me, I was born, I went to school in Westnile, I'm in the system, and that is all to me there is, and nothing more. Now, I think it's completely not true, especially for the case of government sponsorship, national merit. For national merit, that is completely not true, in the sense that how government sponsorship is awarded is in that the results for that year are gotten. People apply in ZAB forms. So if we have applied maybe for electrical engineering at Makerere University will say for this year on government sponsorship we're talking about 80 people. So you go to the system, the computer just ranks the first 80 people on that list, and the 80th person's points or weight become the cutoff for that year. So there's no way the computer, unless the computer is programmed to do something, so there's no way you can be left out if you actually qualify to be among the 80. I think it's a misconception which we should deal with, and we should face the reality that we perform poorly and derive solutions towards that end, and not disguise under discrimination to justify the outcome of our exams. Otherwise, if you saw me one student who got 20 points and deserved to get government sponsorship and didn't get it, I would love to take that case on.
Okay, interesting. I love how you've talked about misconception. Misconception plays a big role in, I believe, in all this, because people here have it in mind. Now, even if I get 20 points, or even if I get a first class, first grade and all that, I'm not going to make it on government sponsorship, because, my parents are poor, they can't afford this kind of education. How has that contributed to, the poor quality education and low level of education in this region? How has that affected education in our region?
I think misconception or an attitude of that kind has had its significant impact on performance in Westnile. Now, please, it goes minus saying that there are other forms of sponsorship, like loan scheme, for which somebody could argue discrimination and perhaps have a ground to justify them. But I just want to note that for government sponsorship, it is foolhardy to think that somebody can implement discrimination, because then when you see your cutoff point and don't get the weight, there's even an argument for which you can challenge. And we've had those cases resolved. Recently, I think there was one other case, but the schools, the universities that had taken it had admitted as a mistake and reconsidered the particular student who had been left out, but it wasn't from Westnile though. But those cases are extremely rare, and they cannot be cumulatively used as an excuse. Now, the issue of attitude is a huge one in Westnile. Last year, I went to school in Madiokolo, and I think it was, the school is located near Fishing Village. We, luckily enough, or unfortunately, we went to the school in the afternoon, and then we found I think the school had an enrollment of about 500 students overall, but the ones we were able to find at school were about 300. And when we asked where the 200 students, this has told us during the season for fishing, students decide to go and do fishing. So that kind of attitude, there's another misconception in itself, that for us, when we go to school, we have seen people who have gone to school who have not gotten employed. So why should we go to school if I go and ride my border or I do fishing? And there is some significant money they make from fishing. They think that can be prioritized over school. So all those summed up in themselves have also had their contribution towards the poor performance in the region, if you asked me to say. But misconception of, for us, we are this way, even if I do this, I can't get this. Yes, somebody can argue that is one of the elements of misconception, that it can comprise all the forms of misconception that constitute what I will call a poor attitude in Westnile towards education. There are very many forms, like still girls going to school, and all those summed up as the poor attitude or misconception towards education have had their toll on the performance in Westnile.
Okay. And aside from poor education, you know, all that, Westnile also suffers a problem of teenage pregnancy that we're all trying to battle in this region. So turning to Ms. Habib, how has education, you know, helped solve the problem of teenage pregnancy? How has the fact that girls going to school curbed that problem?
Thank you so much for that. Yeah, teenage pregnancy is still a great challenge to Westnile schools. Of recent, I was in Terego. I went to some school last year, and this year I went back to that very school, and the number of girls reduced. I asked the girls, where are the girls? Last year I found this number and this, and they're like, oh, most of them are now mothers, or they are pregnant and all that. So I told them, so how comes for you, was it their choice, how comes for you, you're not a mother right now? And what is like, some girl told me, I really want to be a mother, but it's just that because I'm in a boarding school, I don't have the chance to be a mother yet. That's what she told me. So based on this, I think the education system is really playing a great role in reducing teenage pregnancy. You know, especially for boarding schools, you're kept at school, you don't have the time to socialize with others and everything. You only have the chance once, maybe your holidays and all that. And also, through education, when you actually step into those schools, you have your senior women teachers and everyone talking to you, discouraging you, telling you about the dangers of teenage pregnancy, like the outreach we are talking about teenage pregnancy and all that. Those are educative things. You get things out of it and you make your choices based on that if you really want to take that step. So I feel education has really played a great role in reducing the rate of teenage pregnancy in the region, though it's still there and more has to be done, not only through education, but a lot has to be done to reduce teenage pregnancy in the region. It's still a vice in this region.
Okay, that's very interesting. So, Mr. Alionji Lawrence, looking at this region, what is the relationship between education and teenage pregnancy?
There was a research done by one organization abbreviated as ICRW, I think an international organization for research centered on women.
On women, yeah.
So they said in Westnile, for every 10 boys that go to school, they're an equivalent of 6. So the ratio is 10 to 6, and that is terrible. I have continuously argued over time that for a nation to realize its full potential, then it must activate all its sectors to its full potential. And I've then used the analogy that the nation might be like a plane that runs on 2 engines. The plane can only take off the way it is supposed to if both engines are function at full potential. So even when we have tried to educate the boys to a level that is significant, but the girl child is not yet, we are missing out on the potential that we are lacking in that particular sector. So yes, when we come to why that ratio is so, for the case of Westnile, somebody can argue, and he will be not wrong in any way, that teenage pregnancy is factor number 1 on why most of the girls, because even the nature of the biology is that if a boy gets a girl pregnant, even if the 2 of them are school-going children, the girl suffers the physical impact more. Because he's pregnant, the stigma, we don't have the school settings are not meant for pregnant mothers. So the girl automatically finds herself being kicked out of the school system. But the boy may somehow still continue to go back to school, even when the 2 of them had faltered in that particular end. So yes, for me that ratio of 10 to 6. Boys to girls respectively is significantly attributed to teenage pregnancy. And talking from experience, where I also went to, I think yet another school in Mariokolo, and the matron, or the ladies, the teachers in charge of the girls, said there was a lady who had gotten pregnant, and she had given very many examples, but this particular one that stood out for me, and that she was struggling with bringing the girl back to school, because then the parents wanted the girl taken to go and get married. So yes, teenage pregnancy is still our problem, but also Westnile being the second poorest region in the country, I think we should not be surprised that that is the case.
Sure. We
shouldn't be surprised, because in a rural setting, then that is to be expected. Only reason that as poor as we are, because now many of our families still look at girls as sources of dowry. So when the girl is walking about an SMP7, the father starts calculating how many cows he can get from this particular girl, and then because the nature of the setting, when the girl has just come or maybe of age of 12 or 13, the girl of course has to go and fend for the family in a way, or to go to the market. She's significantly exposed out to the world without any measures to control the girl, because then the poverty is reflected in our ignorance, even in managing modern day children that actually go to school. So all those summed up have contributed to teenage pregnancy, but in effect it has led to low enrollment of girls in schools. Yes.
Great, thank you so much for putting that into details. What they've just been talking about is the relationship between education and teenage pregnancy, yet another big problem that we face here in Westnile, and that is one of the reasons that the causes of poor performance here in Westnile, especially among girls, just to be specific. Thank you for joining us for today's discussion. Those who have just joined it, this is The Real Talk with me, Ayot Lillian, every Saturdays from 9 to 10 p.m. and today we are discussing poor performance, especially here in Westnile region. Joining us in the studio here is Mr. Alyonji Lawrence, better known as Dangote, and Ms. Tasneem Habib, who has joined us here for this discussion. And you can be a part of this discussion by going on our YouTube channel, like, subscribe, and leave a comment. We'll have your comments read out here. Let's go in for a short commercial break. We'll be back. Don't go away.
Westnile TV, lighting up the region.
Get more for less on Star Times this Easter season. Cartoon channel for best children entertainment. New global series. Local drama on Mercula TV and football all around the world. Simply make weekly or monthly subscription and enjoy upgrade to the next bouquet. For classic or super bouquet customers, subscribe for a month and enjoy 5 days extra. Family time with Star Times. Star Times is regulated by UCC.
Yeah! Sadani Hype is the latest. And if you love it, take it down low, take it down low. Vibe we need. Yeah. Introducing Devi Dancer. Ladies. Say shake your body. On fire. Devi Dancer, yeah. What about that? Thank you for vibing with us. What's up? Hey.
Break your body.
So break your body. So break your body. Break your body. We separate. Break, 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 break your body. Yeah. Sadani Hype is the latest. And if you love it, take it down low, take it down low. Vibe we need. Yeah. Introducing Devi Dancer. Ladies. Say shake your body. On fire. Devi Dancer, yeah. What about that? Thank you for vibing with us. What's up? Hey.
Break your body.
So break your body. So break your body. Break your body. We separate. Break, 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 break your body. Yeah. Sadani Hype is the latest. And if you love it, take it down low, take it down low. Vibe we need. Yeah. Introducing Devi Dancer. Ladies. Say shake your body. On fire. Devi Dancer, yeah. your body. So break your body. So break your body. Break your body. We say break, 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 break your body.
Westnile TV, lighting up the region.
Welcome back from that break. This is the Real Talk with me, Ayot, Lillian. Every Saturdays from 8 to 10 p.m. here on Westnile TV. You can catch us on Zuku, Star Times, and on our YouTube channel where you can leave your comments, and we'll have your comments read out here. If you have just joined us, our discussion for today is focused on poor performance in Westnile region. Westnile is a region in Uganda, just in case you're watching us from outside Uganda. And thank you for staying with us. In the studio, we have Mr. Alionji Lawrence, better known as Dangote. I continue to emphasize. And we have Mr. Smin Habib here in the studios to discuss this matter. And these are a group of very passionate young people who want to bring positive change here in Westnile, and especially in the education sector. Recently, they've been going out to schools for education outreach, to inspire, try to find out some of the causes of poor performance, and talk to the students, the school administration, and see how this can be dealt with. And they have engaged a number of different district leaders in the different districts here in Westnile to see that we actually deal with this problem. So we have discussed some of the things, what they think about Westnile when it comes to performance generally in education here, and we had their views and all that. But right now we want to go into the issues, particularly why there is poor performance in Westnile. Year in, year out, we continue to register poor performances at different levels, be it primary, secondary, and also at a higher, at the university. So what is the problem? And we want to know where the problem is coming from. Is it from the part of the students, the parents, the government, local leaders, the teachers, and all that? Those are things we would want to look at. We had earlier on talked about teenage pregnancy, making some of these girls, also boys, drop out of school, making them not to focus, but a lot of things. He also quickly mentioned poverty, and I believe it's one of the biggest reasons as to why our students here are performing poorly. So we'll start with Mr. Smin Habib. What are some of the biggest causes of poor performance here in Westnile?
Thank you once again. Poor performance in Westnile, it's a topic we discussed in each and every school we went to during the outreach. There's no school we went to and we did not discuss poor performance, because we looked at it as the greatest challenge to our education system in Westnile still. So poor performance, it can be attributed to different people, the students themselves, the teachers, stakeholders, parents at home, and all that. Let me look at poor performance from the side of the students, the pupils, and all that. So as we're interacting with students, my colleague was the one talking about poor performance. So she asked them, why do you guys perform poorly? What's the problem? One person boldly stood up and is like, my problem is I was supposed to come to school, so I'm just here to stay because I was supposed to come here. Some other person said, why would we perform well? It's just that the schools you're comparing us with actually cheat exams. That's why they beat us, yet we perform well. That's what someone told me. So, like, a number of the students were just basing on the fact that they perform well, but other schools actually
it's like
cheat.
a blame game for them.
That's why their results are below the ones. So I told them that attitude of theirs is too negative, and unless they change that attitude, they will not perform well. Did they see those schools cheating? Okay, if they cheat, why can't you make sure, why can't you put extra steps to make sure you beat them even if they are cheating? They're like, they cannot. So to me, I looked at that as one of the greatest challenges, attitude towards some things. So if unless you change that attitude that these schools cheat, we're performing well, to them they're performing well, but outside there you're not. You're saying schools cheat, okay, compete with them and get those results. That's what I told them. So on another scenario of poor performance, let's look at, let me go back to our teachers. Our teachers, on Wednesday there was yet in another school, a girl walked to me when I was leaving. She told me, hey, how are you? I'm like, I'm fine and all that. Like, do you know what? I regret coming to study in Arua. I'm like, why? It's like, schools here don't perform well. Students here don't read. All they concentrate is on other stuffs other than reading, like football, like schools here into football, they're into netball, running, what? I'm like, but those activities are part of the curriculum. And she's like, it's okay. But all the attention goes to those activities. Instead of concentrating in class and everything, she feels like she's not studying. She feels like she's not in class. She feels like she's just there chilling with people who just came there to pass time. They did not want to study. So she actually told me, since you're carrying this outreach, how are you going to help us? How are you going to help us to make sure that the attitude of learners in this region change? Because I'm tired of schools this side. That's what she told me. So based on that, I agreed with her about the attitude of learners, because interacting with kids, you can hear them throwing comments from there and there. Their attitude towards education in Westnile is very, very negative. They do not, I don't know if they're not motivated or what, or they need more motivation. I would say they need more motivations. They need to be pushed and all that. That's when they realize. Another thing apart from the students, the issue of performance in Teregus, yet the head teacher, we had a meeting with the head teacher and he told us, I will tell you the truth, schools will continue performing badly, especially in Westnile, especially that this new curriculum is out, because the government is not supporting them at all. They do not have support from the government. They really want to push the students and all that, but they cannot do it without support from the stakeholders and the government. So unless those people change their attitudes and come in and start supporting them and all that, schools will never perform. And the kids, the communities they live in really, really influence them. And what these people, the people they interacting with in the communities, the trading centers around their schools and everything, those affect the students so much. Their performance is affected so much. So that's all I'm going to say about the performance, and keep on saying
Okay, thank you, Tasmin, for that. Picking from what she has said, we can tell that mostly the biggest cause of poor performance in school is from the students, because most of them have this mentality in mind, we're performing well but this is not happening. Now I don't know how someone's attitude gets to affect the other, but that's what we pick. It becomes a big challenge when the government does not support the teachers or the schools, like one of the head teachers has said, like she said. So that is where we see the roles of the different stakeholders in improving the performance in the different schools in the region. So we're calling upon them to actually take note of these challenges that we are mentioning here. So turning to Mr. Alionji Lawrence, what are some of the biggest causes of poor performance here in Westnile? Why are we still lagging behind when it comes to performance?
Poor performance is not an event. Poor performance is a process. In the sense of the word, that there are so many factors that actually end up as poor performance. And of course, the best way to explain or to tackle the issue have been stakeholder per stakeholder. So, and the biggest players in the education or the performance of a child will be the child at the center of it, the parent, the teachers, and then the government that has an obligation or has a contract with its citizens to provide services such as education. And most times when people debate the issue of education, it is because it is easy to throw it all on the government. We forget other factors that are relevant in the discussion. And you see, there are challenges in the education sector that are unique to us as Westnile, and there are those that cut across the nation and that affect us too, because we are still part of the system. And challenges are very many. It might be hard even to pick a selection, but for me the following stand out. One, I think for the sake of Westnile, we seem to have given up. Like nobody is even trying to perform beyond the normal.
Who have given up? The students, the parents, the teachers?
Everybody has given up. It is so when the results come out. It's normal to every sector. The government says Westnile is a poor region. Maybe perhaps that's what they expect. Teachers will tell you that the school we are poorly funded. We are not funded. We are not as much funded as the schools in Kampala. Students will say schools in Kampala cheat. So it seems nobody seems to be trying. Everybody has settled for the bare minimum. And so what happens is that if a child is very intelligent, then he is sent to a school in Kampala. Of course, we're not saying the schools in Kampala are still in Pahofa. Those are still schools in the country. We want them to. The issue is not bringing them down, but the issue is matching up to where we should be as schools in Westnile. Somebody could look at it also this way. What happens is also when maybe a parent has money, the parent takes the schools to the children to study. Of course, which also happens in Uganda too. There's still people in Kampala who have money and take their kids to study outside of the country. But the point is that, for me, in my opinion, we seem to have given up as those who are players in the education sector in Westnile. And then, when you go to school, the most important thing is the academics. And again, for us, that's where our biggest problem is, the academic infrastructure. Now, there are schools in Westnile whose classrooms do not have windows. So when it rains, you cannot study. Because if there's rain and there's wind, you cannot go. That particular lesson will not happen. There are schools in Westnile where there are no labs. There might be one lab for physics, for biology, for chemistry, for agriculture, for geography. Everything is done in that one lab. That confusion itself implies the improperness of the operation. But also where there are labs, they're only buildings. They're not labs in the sense of the word. One of my sisters goes to a school within here. She's now in senior fund. She said they haven't even done a single practical for physics, and they'll be doing UNEB next term. So does it surprise you that my sister is going to perform poorly in physics practicals? Unless magic happens. But the last time I checked, God wasn't a magician, and I don't know which magician will employ in Westnile to provide us with that miracle. But also, apart from the labs, the libraries. By the time I went to school, I think the library only had storybooks. So if maybe I'll give an example, and this is just the school I've picked out of random. If a school like Mvara, the only books for biological science, which is one of the most fundamental for biology at A level, are only 2. But a school in Kampala can stock its entire library with about 15 biological science books for its A-level students doing biology. Do you still expect us to compete? So there's the inadequacy of academic infrastructure. But what has this difference come to be? I told you we're the second poorest in the region. So that means that there's a constant factor that I could mention in every challenge being the resource basket. That is extremely, even if the schools wanted to, where does the money come from? If you inflate the fees, who is going to pay? Because you know that the people that are providing service do not have the money to pay for these things. So the resource basket is extremely limited. And even if the schools knew what to do, they couldn't do it because then their hands are tied, because the resource basket is extremely constrained. And so because this has happened for so long, we have now made peace with the fact that we perform poorly. And so it doesn't surprise us that we perform poorly, and we're not even trying now to perform better. So it brings the issue of an attitude towards education. People still say that even if you go to school, you won't get employed. And they make it seem like if you go to Westnile school, then you are sure of unemployment. So, but I think that is a constant factor. It's not derail us as a sub-region from participating in education. But also, and this, for me, this I think this will wrap it up. Is it for a region as Westnile, the second poorest, but also as somebody who has passed through the school system within Westnile, I think Westnile education is to Westnile as music is to Nigeria. It is it's Nigerian youth. It is almost the ultimate way for somebody to escape the difficulties of life. Some of us now come to be guild president just because education, and single-handedly. And so when I was with and this was my basic message to the children in schools, that for you, education is like single path. It is the only way, it's the only means to transport you into a better future. And so whether our schools the infrastructure is poor, okay, in whatever state our schools we find ourselves, or our schools, we have no option but to pursue it for you to escape the difficulties. Otherwise, you are trapped in this cycle of poverty. Of vulnerability and poverty that we find ourselves in over a long period of time. So to be able to escape that, we must I think we must accept, as we try to do better by our challenge, but accept and punch through, squeeze blood out of a stone. And so and somebody might say I'm asking too much of them, and maybe I am, because then every system means that garbage in, garbage out. If you feed our schools with poor infrastructure academically, if we feed them with poor attitude, and the community is feeding the children with poor towards education, then we expect garbage out, or we expect poor performance. But to the academic or to the student who is studying, I hope you recognize that whether you are at secondary or university, I hope you recognize that education is your best shot at escaping this poor life that we find ourselves in as a sub-region.
Okay, that is very interesting. You know, some of the challenges that even parents have cited leading to poor performance in these schools is the fact that they do not understand the curriculum. But I like what Dangote has said, his general observation in the different schools of this region, ranging from poor infrastructure to the attitude of the students and all that and all that. Turning to Ms. Tasmin, what is your understanding of this curriculum? And how has it, contributed to poor performance as alleged by some people?
All right, thank you once again. About the new curriculum, I might not have as much information on it as the people who introduced it have, but from what I've read and interactions, this is what I have to say on the new curriculum. So the new curriculum, as we're studying in senior one and that, we will do like 18 subjects. Other people will go up to doing like 20 subjects, depending on the schools they went to. But right now, the new curriculum only allows senior ones and senior twos to do only 12 subjects, whereby 11 are compulsory, then 1 is an elective, which can be ICT, agriculture, literature, and others. That design, art and design, which are all practical. That's the only elective you have. All the electives are practical. So the new curriculum, it's just a new thing. Just after COVID and everything, we are slapped with a new curriculum and everything. And according to researchers, this curriculum people are not actually properly consulted. Like most of these researchers are from the School of Education in Makerere. Most of these stakeholders, people who are in the education system, the teachers were not consulted. So the people from the NCDC, those that were in charge of the education in Uganda, the curriculums and everything. So they just took that initiative on themselves and did not they only consulted a few people, and not consult, like the consultations were not countrywide. So it was not enough. So the curriculum was slapped immediately after COVID. Teachers were supposed to go train and everything and all that. So it's more practical, and students are supposed to end classes at 2 p.m. Other classes go like up to 3 and everything, but most private schools actually go up to 4.
Okay.
But most of these government schools actually stop at that exact time. At 2 they stop, the students go and do other things. So this curriculum, they're supposed to train teachers. Still, I'll refer to my conversation with the head teacher in Terego. Okay. That this curriculum, they're supposed to produce new textbooks and everything for the curriculum. Teachers were trained, but teachers were not well trained. Even if the teachers were well trained, like for the electives which are practical, the teachers did not have the equipment. They did not have the computers, they did not have all the equipment for the art and design and all that. So it's now hard. Instead, they just go and teach it theoretically in classes. Yet it's supposed to be practical. And he raised a complaint that the textbooks for the new curriculum, government promised to supply them. They have never been supplied. So the teachers, most teachers in the district have turned back to the old curriculum. They just come to class because they have to come, because there's that new system called TELA, Teachers Effectiveness and Learners Achievement. It's a new system in schools where they track the teacher's attendance and all that. So teachers just actually come to school to make sure that they actually sign into that system.
Great. So basing on whatever information you've said about the curriculum and all that, teachers not being well trained, even the learners, some of the learners do not understand actually what is being taught, and leave alone the parents, they do not even understand the progress of their children in class. So how does that affect performance in these schools, given the fact that even some of the teachers do not understand the new curriculum?
The new curriculum automatically affects performance in schools, especially those schools which have not received these textbooks and all that. The teachers don't understand what they are teaching, but they just come to class and teach. Also, the students don't know, but we students, we also believe that once a teacher comes and is teaching us, whatever the teacher is saying is the truth. But yet most of these teachers actually are not well versed with this curriculum. Even if they're well versed, they don't have the materials, the computers, and everything used for the practical part of this, for teaching the curriculum. So automatically, whatever you're teaching, this curriculum, exam, you do not do examinations like we used to do end of term, and all that. No, you do not. It just, you have to learn from senior 1 up to senior 4. Whatever assessment and everything you do, it adds up to 20% of your UNEB. So this brings a lot of reluctancy into the students. You do not do any exams, you just sit, you just have to get your 20%, which will be added into UNEB. So the students relax a lot. You end your classes after lunch, you just go and chill, you have nothing to do. I'm not going to do papers at the end of the what? I'm not going to do papers at the end of the time. I do not have to read, I just have to sit there and do this and wait for my 20%, whether it comes or no. So it has brought a lot of reluctance in students automatically.
Thank you so much. She has rightly put it, how the new curriculum is actually contributing to poor performance amongst the students. Teachers not being well trained and the students themselves not understanding what is going on. So that's when we call upon the responsible people to actually look into that. Still regarding the curriculum, we've seen that it's more practical and it leaves more weight on actually the learners to do more research here and there. And you had mentioned something earlier on about Westnile being the second poorest region in the country. So we see that this let's say like you said, most of the schools are not, they do not have good infrastructure. Let's talk about the libraries that are not stocked, so they do not have all the resources, and these learners are allowed to use phones and all that. But we're looking at a poor region that less than maybe 80% of the students can afford smartphone to do further research. How has this affected our performance in the region? How has it contributed to poor performance?
Lillian, Uganda is a very good country on paper.
Okay.
And the new curriculum is no exception. This country has never been short of brilliant academics. And I think we ought to respect the work of those who developed this new curriculum. And it's why I'm saying on paper it's a good thing. But it is very comic for somebody to think to roll out the new curriculum in a sub-region as Westnile, in the sense that it's just like any other government program. If we debated it on the ideal of the one who developed the program, we would have reasons to justify the program. But the issue has always been implementation. And like Habib has said, you see, in my personal opinion is that the new curriculum is the future. The only debate that I am willing to have is on the timing and the nature of the implementation of the new curriculum. For the case of Westnile, I already said even with the old curriculum, when I would give the student notes to read, even the additional of going to research in the library, our library, they were either not there or they were poorly facilitated to an extent it's hard to call them a library if not for the building that is being named the library. So now with the new curriculum, we expect the students to go and do. And one brilliant thing, which also turns out to be a disadvantage in the implementation, is that the old curriculum was teacher-centered. That's how the teacher will stand in front and will listen to the teacher and take in gospel truth from the teacher, cram them in and wait for the exam to produce a marking guide for the teacher. But the new curriculum is student-centered. Student does the research, presents to the teacher. Even the sitting arrangement is supposed to be different. Now when it comes to that's why I'm saying this whole implementation in the case of Westnile is a whole joke. I will be very interested to listen to the implementers on what they thought, how they were planning to realize. One, Not only have you failed to avail textbooks for the new curriculum to the secondary schools that we have here, you implemented a system in schools that barely have libraries in the sense of the word libraries. So I'm wondering, my schools in Westnile, when it's time for the students to go and do research, where do they actually go? Now, some of this research, I'm told, is supposed to be done online.
Online, yes.
Yet even a better job. Now, how many schools in Westnile have computers? Of the few who have, how many people in the school, including teachers, can effectively use the computers? Did we actually train teachers on the new curriculum? If yes, how much training did we do? And did we really think that we have done enough to be able to roll out this new curriculum? But my general opinion is that yes, right now I will limit my comments to implement it because it's too early to assess the success of the new curriculum. I think it's just maybe just a few years that we have rolled out yet. So we are yet to see the kind of learners it will produce, but it is not too early to raise concerns on the implementation of the new curriculum already. But the overall impact of the new curriculum, we are still on the dawn. So by its eve, it will be fair. It will be only fair to assess its impact and success on the eve. But already there are concerns on the implementation, like I've already told you. And when the concerns comes back to the infrastructure, the academic infrastructure, the books that are available in the curriculum. Somebody just said the schools that don't have them. Some wonder what are the teachers actually teaching. I remember these are teachers who have come from the old curriculum to the new one. The temptation to trickle back to the old curriculum.
They're already going back.
They're already going back. But also, if you give them no choice, except to do that, I think, and so I think the concerns around the but also around the implementation, but zero down on the infrastructure available, because then like, when we talk about the manner in which learners are supposed to sit, we usually sit on desks. And the desks are so limited. So how are we even going to arrange the desks in the classes, or the new system for sitting in classes? The libraries that were already poorly furnished, but now that there are no books of new curriculum, you cannot imagine the library is supposed to be empty at this point. So maybe I'm imagining the students take now the time for research to chill out. So I think we need to do better with the implementation if we should come close to realizing the objectives of the new curriculum.
Thank you so much. Now, generally speaking, we would want to look at what we can do. You know, as the young people have already taken the lead. You know, you guys going to the schools, talking to these learners, engaging the teachers, the head teachers on the issue of poor performance and how best you can do this. So, what are some of the ways that we can improve performance in the region? I'll start with Miss Habib.
Thank you once again. So
I would love to hear your recommendations to some of the schools.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. So on the solutions to poor performance in schools in Westnile. So it's not going to be one person's thing. It's not going to only be my thing or hers or anyone or parents, or it needs joint efforts. Us as a region. This calls for stakeholder engagement, the parents, the teachers, the students. It's not only the students who can change it, or the teachers or anyone. It needs joint effort for us to change the performance in these schools. So one thing I kept on telling the students is, first, the teachers is to motivation. The students need motivation. I need something to, let me speak for myself as I say, I need something to motivate me. So who can motivate me? Motivation is not only at school or right from home. You need something to push you that I need to perform well. But again, someone cannot come and start pushing you if you actually do not want to be pushed. So I always base my point on that, now a mindset, me as a student, what do I want? What do I want to achieve? So I first take it back to myself before I want to be pushed by a teacher, I want to be chased by my parents, I'm waiting for the government and all that, because there are people who studied in hardship before us and they made it. So I always take it to me as an individual, what I want, what you want as an individual, you as a student, what you want. So once you realize that, you'll actually be motivated by on your own basis without looking for someone to motivate you, without looking for that doctor, I want to be motivated by that doctor. No, you first have to motivate yourself, then you can look up to someone. So motivation is needed, but through parents, teachers and everything to motivate the students. That's one thing I will say about the poor performance, how we can do away with it, or how we cannot do away with something completely, but how we can improve on our performance as Westnile schools.
Okay.
So another thing, the stakeholders. We've just spoken about the new curriculum and how it's not being implemented properly and all that. Until the stakeholders step in, at least they have to step in to make things better. They have to implement what they started, because you cannot start something, dump it onto us, and you feel we do not have the resources to push it. It's them, they have to come and actually push things. Once they are in, they should not only do this implementation. Once you implement, follow things up. Like I was talking about the Taylor, that new system of monitoring teachers and everything. Of recent, I was listening to some radio station, and the teachers the head teacher of a school in Yumbe was complaining about the Taylor. The government gave us the Taylor machines and everything, but after a month, they stopped working. And yet those teller machines were brought in because of the fact that teachers, because of the poor performance in schools, generally schools, especially in rural areas. So the Ministry of Education introduced the teller machines to monitor teachers, because they felt like because of absenteeism of teachers, that students were performing badly. So they introduced the system to make sure teachers actually appear in class and everything, they monitor you. But the system has failed to work. So until government comes in to properly implement what it is putting in to actually curb the poor performance and everything, it will never work. They have to push in to make whatever they introduce in work before other people can make it work. They're the greatest people to make that change. Once they push something, and the students can actually be motivated. Because I cannot be motivated to read, yet there are no textbook for the new curriculum in my school. What am I reading? What will I use?
Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Habib, for those comments. I love one thing she has said, and that is improving performance in this region is a collective effort. So the students, the teachers, the government, the responsible, all the stakeholders need to come together, sit, so that we can all come up with a solution to see that we improve our performance in this region. And parents, it's very important to talk to your children before sending them to school. When you ask some of the students, why are you here, why are you studying, and they just tell you, my parents sent me to school. So some of them don't have reasons for being in school, and that's why she says we need to motivate our students. They need to know why they have to study. Like Alionji has said, they need to see the value of education rather than sending your children to go fishing on school days and all that. We know they have to get school fees and all that, but please do motivate them positively and all that. We're going in for a short break, just a very short break. We'll come back. When we come back, we'll have Alionji still have a take on how we can better address the issue of poor performance in Westnile region. Don't go away. This is The Real Talk with me, Ayot Lillian.
Westnile TV, lighting up the region.
Get more for less on Star Times this Easter season. Cartoon channel for best children entertainment. New global series. Local drama on Mercula TV and football all around the world. Simply make weekly or monthly subscription and enjoy upgrade to the next bouquet. For classic or super bouquet customers, subscribe for a month and enjoy 5 days extra. Family time with Star Times. Star Times is regulated by UCC.
Yeah! Sadani Hype is the latest. And if you love it, take it down low, take it down low. Vibe we need. Yeah. Introducing Devi Dancer. Ladies. Say shake your body. On fire. Devi Dancer, yeah. What about that? Thank you for vibing with us. What's up? Hey.
Break your body.
So break your body. So break your body. Break your body. We We say break, 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 break your body.
Westnile TV, lighting up the region.
Welcome back from that break. This is the Real Talk with me, Ayot, Lillian, every Saturdays from 8 to 10 p.m. Our repeats run on Thursdays, 9 to 10 p.m. Now, if you have just joined us on this discussion, we are discussing the causes of poor performance here in Westnile. You can be a part of this discussion by following us on our YouTube channel. Like, subscribe, and leave a comment. We'll read your comments right here, and we'll have our guests respond to some of your comments. So earlier on, we looked at some of the causes of these poor performances in Westnile here. We looked at it at length, and we're still looking at how we can, deal with this problem, how we can improve performance here in Westnile. And like Habib said earlier on, it's a collective effort. So each and every one of us plays a big role, and we'll kick on with your comments from YouTube. We have Engineer Simba Zubair Brahan, who says, thanks for the show, but I wish he comments about the uneven awarding of government scholarships, where Mbarara district took a lion's share of about 300 students and more. So that is directed towards Mr. Alionji Lawrence. Let's have him quickly respond to that. After this comment, we have Mungfeni Remis, who says, so what needs to be done to improve their performance? You are talking about Habib, and that goes to Habib. But let's have Mr. Alionji Lawrence respond to the issue of the scholarship.
Thank you, Lillian, and thank you, Engineer Simba, for the question. He was inviting my comment towards the uneven distribution of government scholarship. Now, I reserve my opinion that at the awarding of government scholarship, I think we cannot talk discrimination at the level of awarding, because I've already depicted the system that awards government scholarship. There is no human being involved. If 100 people have applied to a particular university for a particular government course on national merit, the system ranks them in order, and the university picks the number the university wants as the computer has ranked them, and the last person's weight becomes the cutoff. But now, where does the unfairness come from? The unfairness comes in at the nature of the schools, that like the discrepancies that we have among the schools. So if a region then has well facilitated or schools that are well facilitated, or schools that are up to date, and then chances are high that the students in that school perform better, and the region will contribute more on the national merit. So that's where the challenge comes from. The challenge comes from the nature of the schools, and the performance of the schools, of course, comes from the establishment of those schools. So that is where the actual problem is, but it's not at the level of, it's not like for the case of government sponsor, but you can argue they have been reported cases, and reported enough to be debated, that there is unfair giving out of scholarships like loan scheme, where a particular region then has significantly higher numbers than other regions, and I think, but also recently, National Council for Education released a document saying that for this financial year, government will not be conducting loan scheme. I hope people have seen that. So, and there's very many challenges of the loan scheme. I think in itself, it was a failed thing.
Okay.
Yes. So, but my opinion is that at the level of awarding, there's really, we cannot debate discrimination, but it's at the level of performance of schools that then somebody can argue discrimination, which comes in form of the resource basket for each of those schools, the establishment of those schools, and how the schools operate, the differences in the schools.
Well, if I may interject there, do you think that the government, if the government brings these, scholarship things at regional level, maybe has a specific number for each region, will it be able to solve, all these thoughts of discrimination and all that? Will that bring about equality in the number of students that go on government sponsorship every year?
There's already a debate on the access to government scholarship. In fact, the Deputy Speaker of Parliament, the Right Honourable Tayebwa, has been a key player in that debate, arguing that currently government scholarship has been gotten by those that go to good schools, can get the good points, and get those that can't afford the good schools, for whom government scholarship, in his opinion, was meant, can't access them. So I think, generally speaking, there's a question that we have not answered as an academic arena. The question is government scholarship meant for the poor, or it's an award for academic excellence? Because then, if government scholarship is a provision for the poor, then we are doing so poorly. But if government scholarship is an award for academic excellence, and even when I am a son of a means I've performed well, that means I deserve government scholarship. True. Now, but I think I share the opinion of others that those that are the most vulnerable should then be given an upper hand in accessing government scholarship, because we need that sector to also be empowered. There's already a provision in government scholarship, that is district quota, where the best performance in that performance, though the slots are few. So in regards to what you said, the argument will be to increase the number of government slots, the number of slots at district quota, so that much more students can be taken up. But also people then in that case will argue, will they raise the element of national competition? Because then I will know that even if I'm in Karamoja, I perform poorly, even if I get 5 points, I'll have the best in Karamoja. But I think we have, in my opinion, the actual problem is in the discrepancies in the schools that we have. Because if somebody goes to Stende, that person certainly is not having the same education as somebody who has gone to a secondary school in Nakapriprit. Sure. Those are not the same Ugandan youngsters. So for me, I think that is the problem we need to fix. Because if, even when we bring government scholarship to Aru has its own, then Wakiso has its own. But the difference in the schools, because our bigger concern should be education itself, not just award of government scholarship. So I think we just need to fix, and this is my opinion now. I think government needs to, in a way, regulate the cost of education. Because I have argued that education is a public good. In fact, education is a right.
Yeah, it's a right.
Education is a right. And if education is the way we invest into constructing roads, or the way we have put money into mining oil, is the same way we should invest in education without holding back. And if that is true, what we will do is we subsidize for both private schools and secondary schools many of their expenditure as government. So when we subsidize, then now government will have the moral authority, or whatever sort of authority, to place we will not dictate the figure, but a sort of regulation on the fees that schools are supposed to pay. Now, if government does that, then a boy is able to compete with Christ the King's primary school, because then the resource basket is around the same, and maybe the only difference will come in implementation.
Okay.
So yeah, that's what I will say.
Thank you so much for that input, and I hope the person who asked the question has actually gotten the answer that he was seeking. I love the question you posed out, that the government has to make it clear who this scholarship is for. Is it for people who excel academically, or for those who are disadvantaged? So that's a question that they'll have to answer. We're still going on with the comment. We have Barbed Wire Elk, who says, families have a big role to play in order to improve their performance. And that comes back to what Tasmin had said, you know, the environment in which the students are greatly affect their performance. We have Ayot Vincent, who says administrators should employ more teachers under private so as to ensure reasonable syllabus coverage. Thank you so much, Ayot Vincent, for that comment, and each and every one of you who have left their comments on our YouTube channel. We also have Ricky Ojotre, who says, thanks. Honestly, we are lacking a lot of exposure, interest, attitude, facilities, poverty, but still the more talk to the students and parents, the better. These students need to be inspired. Thank you so much, Ricky Ojote, and I think that's exactly what our brother and our sister here and a lot more people have been doing, going to different schools to inspire these children. Thank you so much everyone who has stayed with us on the show. It has been a fruitful discussion. Thank you for catching. Thank you so much. Our discussion has been on the issue of poor academic performance in Westnile region, and we've had Mr. Alionji Lawrence Dangote here in the studio and Miss Tasmin Habib who joined us here for this discussion. So we just have 1 minute for them each to say their last words to our viewers. Thank you so much. We'll start with Miss Tasmin Habib. Before we go to your comment, we'll have before you go to your last word, let's have a comment coming in from Gift Irene, who says, thanks a lot, my dear friends, for the talk, especially Ayot Lillian for updating us on YouTube. Thank you so much, Gift, for catching the show. Let's have you put out your last word to our viewers.
Thank you so much. First and foremost, I want to thank you for having me here today. Really,
it's a pleasure
to be here. And also the viewers, I want to thank you so much, and I hope the discussion was really fruitful. And yeah, as I said before, the only way we can change the education system in Westnile in terms of performance and everything, and use the education to change Westnile, which is the second poorest region after Karamoja, is through our education. And we cannot do it alone. We need joint efforts. So for us to change the attitude of the learners towards education, we need each and everyone to participate in that. Just as we are doing, going to schools and talking to them and everything. And you can do the same. You as a mother at home, father at home, a sister, brother, you can do the same. You can motivate someone, being your siblings, neighbors, motivate someone to go to school. We can change the attitude of learners towards education in this region because it's really poor. We need more and more of students to go to school, and education is the strongest tool we can use to change our nation. We can use to build our nation. Just for the case of Westnile, we really needed to change it. So I urge us to all at least change someone's life towards education by actually let's talk about the positive things about education, not negativity about education, because it really discourages a lot. So that's all I'm going to say. Thank you all.
All right, thank you so much, Ms. Habib, for coming on the show. It's been wonderful having you here, and thank you for putting out your input to our viewers. Thank you so much, Dane. I've seen you, Rodney, Vincent. I've seen all of you. Now let's have Mr. Alionji Lawrence put out his last message to our viewers. Thank you.
Thank you, Lillian. I hope my discussions thus far have depicted my passion for the education sector. And while taking note that the subject that we discussed for me is as topic was one that deserves to preoccupy us this evening, I think any sensible or reasonable government will prioritize education, and therefore it will be interested in regulating the cost of education, because then it is not a matter of debate that education is a right, and both a right and a public good. And any government will be interested in trying to fix the gap between its private and secondary schools. But what I will say, even with a deeper passion, is this. And I've said this before, that to my people of Westnile, sometimes governments operate like God. They only help those who help themselves. And there's no government whatsoever that will come up in the near future that is going to prioritize our problems as Westnile and fix them in that manner, or in the manner in which they occur. Even if the interventions, they'll be national. And if we keep lagging behind, even with all the interventions, we still lag behind as a region. And I hope, because I'm saying this against the background, that for us as a people, like I've said, where we find ourselves, whether the statistics are right or wrong, education remains an ultimate or the most reliable way for our young people to escape the difficulties of life that the region uniquely presents, or that our children find ourselves in, especially the circle of poverty. I am convinced that there's much better that we can do, and I need everybody in Westnile is a player in the education sector to realize this, because I think Westnile can be better. Westnile will be better because Westnile must be better.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Alionji, for that message to our viewers. And Mr. Tasmin, it has been a wonderful, evening having you here in the studio. Share your thoughts on how we can improve performance here in Westnile, because I love how you've put it. It's a collective responsibility, and that's why we are out here talking about it, and that's why you are out there viewing. And I pray the message reaches out to the people, so that the responsible stakeholders, so that they can do what needs to be done. Thank you so much. That is it for tonight's episode. Catch you again next Saturday from 8 to 10 p.m. And if you feel this message is supposed to reach someone who has not yet gotten it, they can catch it on Thursdays from 9 to 10 a.m. Thank you so much. See you again next Saturday. Please stay tuned for the next program, that is the Late Night Show, coming in with Simon Living and MC Mel. And kudos to our producer Aldo and our cameraman for the good work. Thank you.